Hey everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I know coming on late. Hey Bree. But I have some more information to bring you guys in regarding the Tupac's oh, what's his name? Keefe D? Keefe D? Keefe D? I don't know. Keefe D, right? Yeah. Did you guys get a chance to listen to the hearing? Hold on. What's going on with my phone? I don't know. My thing is saying things are offline. I don't understand what's going on with my phone here. All right, let's get going. I do have I have the search warrant, I have the indictment, and I have an interview with his nephew back in before he passed away in 1998. When they interviewed him, he was the one bragging. He was bragging at first about doing it to Tupac, you know, unaliving him. But he soon changed his tune. Then he was caught in a gang related shootout, and he ended up passing away. But I wanted to bring you guys the indictment. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you guys. This is his indictment right here. You guys can see that. Oh no, this is the search warrant. Hold on. That's not what I want to show you yet. This is the search warrant. Let me show you the indictment itself. All right, here we go. Okay. Well, I keep putting up the wrong one. Hold on a second. Hold on. Let's see. All right, here we go. We're bringing up the I put up the whole wrong thing here. I keep pulling up the wrong thing. Oh, one more time. One more time. Let's try this one more time again. Okay, I think I got it now, finally. Why does it keep pulling up that? That's the affidavit. Hold on. Okay, there we go. We got the indictment. Okay, here we go. All right. We have the indictment for Duane Keith Davis. I don't know why I call him Deandre. Why did I call him that other name? I don't know. Why did I call him the other name? I think the search warrant must have that name on it. Okay, here we go. District Clark County, Nevada. District Court, Clark County, Nevada. It says United States. The state of Nevada. Plaintiff versus Duane Keith A. Davis, aka Keefe D. And it says here the defendant above named Duane Keith Davis, accused by the Clark County grand jury of the crime crimes of murder with use of deadly weapon with the intent to promote, further, or assist a criminal gang. Category A, felony. NRS, then a whole bunch of numbers, committed at within the county of Clark, state of Nevada, on or about the 7th day of September 1996, as follows. Did willfully, unlawfully, feloniously. Oh, somebody just sent me something. Hold on. Oh, okay. Somebody send me something. Knowingly for the benefit of, at the direction of, and or in affiliation with a gang, criminal gang, to wit the Southside Compton Crips, which had as one of its common activity engaging in felonious criminal activity other than the conduct which constitute the primary offense, and the defendant with specific intent to promote, further, or assist in the activity of the Southside Crips gang, with malice aforethought, kill Tupac Amaru Shakur, a human being, with use of deadly weapon, to wit a firearm, by shooting at and or into the body of the said Tupac Amaru Shakur, with killing having been willfully, deliberate, and premeditated, the defendant being criminally liable under one or more of the following principle of criminal liability, to wit: 1. Be directly committing in or further, or under committing this crime, and or 2, by aiding and abetting in the commission of this crime with the intent this crime to commit, by counseling, encouraging, hiring, commanding, inducing, or otherwise procuring the other to commit the crime, to wit, defendant obtaining a firearm for the purpose of seeking retribution against Tupac Amaru Shakur and or Marion Knight, aka Suge, and while in a vehicle with Terrence Brown, aka Bubble Up, and Deandre Smith, aka Big Dre, and or Orlando Anderson, aka Baby Lane, did provide said firearm to Deandre Smith, aka Big Dre, and or Orlando Anderson, aka Baby Lane, with the intent that said co-conspirators commit this said crime, and or 3, pursuant to a conspiracy to committing this crime with the intent that this crime be committed, defendant and or Orlando Anderson, aka Baby Lane, and or Deandre Smith, aka Big Dre, and or Terrence Brown, aka Bubble Up, aiding or abetting and or conspiring by acting in concert throughout. Dated 28th day of September 2023. Stephen B. Wolfson, Clark County District Attorney. And then he gives his bar number. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to go do is look at the police, the search warrant, y'all. This is the important part here, the search warrant. All right, here's the search warrant. All right, here we go. This is what I was trying to get through for. This is the affidavit sealing, ordering sealing affidavit. Okay, this is the search warrant. They unsealed it now. Upon ex parte application of Detective Clifford Mogg, a commissioned officer with the Los Angeles Metropolitan Police Department and affiliate, to seal the affidavit in support of attached search warrant for good cause appearing thereof, it is hereby ordered that the affidavit support of the attached search warrant be sealed pending further order of this court, except that copies be provided to the office of Clark County district attorney, and district attorneys may provide copies to defendant in a criminal proceeding. As part of the criminal discovery process, it is further ordered that the copies of this order sealing affidavit be left at the premises along with the search warrant. Now, this was done back in July 2023. So I guess they unsealed it because I got a copy of it. So it was unsealed. Sorry. It says here, hey guys. It says here, Deandre, Keefe, Davis. So why did they call him Deandre? Maybe that's where I got the name from. Deandre, Keefe, David. Why they call him Deandre? It's the same birthday. Look at the birthday. 6/14/1963. It's the same birthday. Why they call him Deandre? Is that another name he's using? You still working, Kim? I wonder why they call him Deandre. Y'all know? Wonder why. Okay. Here it says here, the state of Nevada to a peace officer in the county of Clark, proof by affidavit having been made before me by Detective Clifford Mogg, and then give us his badge number, and with affiliate and with affidavit attached hereby and incorporate herein by reference that there is probable cause to believe that certain property, namely, right? And then he says, this is the stuff that they got. And remember when I said what they were going to do, what they used? But let's go through it. 1, computer to include but not limited to laptop, tablet, and desktop. 2, electronic storage including but not limited to thumb drives, CD, external hard drive, audio recording storage device, and other electronic storage media. 3, to include but not limited to notebooks, writing, ledgers, and other handwriting, written or typed document concerning TV show. You see that? Look, y'all. TV show, documentaries, YouTube episode, Vlad. Let me stop. YouTube episode, book manuscript, and movies concerning murder of Tupac Shakur. You see that? Hey, Osborne. Tupac Shakur. 4, photos, movies, CDs, writing, and other documentation showing Duane Keefe Davis, aka Keefe D, involving with the Southside Compton Crips. 5, cell phones belonging to Duane Keefe David, date of birth 6/14/1963. Copies of books, Compton. Oh, there go the book that we read, y'all. There go the book that I played. There it is right there, y'all. Okay, Veronica. Okay, guys, we got to play the music. Veronica, thank you. Money, so much money, so much money. Thank you, Veronica. Okay, let's get back to it. Y'all, listen, nigga, we remember we read that. We listened to the book, y'all. I'm telling you, that's why you gotta go listen to the book. Those who have not listened to the book, that are members, or not even put it on the open side, go listen to the book. I told you, didn't I tell y'all? I didn't even read this affidavit of search warrant, and I told y'all. See, I'm telling you, I need to be on that detective team, because I told y'all. I'm acting like some of those people that always be telling people what they told them. But didn't I tell y'all? Okay, we said the book right here. It says copies of the book Compton Street Legend. Remember that? By Keefe D. with Yusuf. Remember? This is the book we listened to. That's the book, Misguided. That's the book. We remember how we was intensely listening to it today? I'm telling people, better go listen to that book. Come to Infamous Sylvia's channel. I got it for y'all. Got it. He told everything, didn't he? He told everything in that book. I knew they was gonna use that book. Grand jurors, I told y'all they're gonna use that book. Told y'all. I didn't even see this affidavit as a search warrant. I didn't see the search warrant, but I told y'all. Articles of property, personal property, which tend to establish the identity of a person in control of said premises, which items of property would consist of parts of, including but not limited to paper, document, and effects which tend to show in possession, dominion, and control over said premises, including but not limited to keys, cancel mail, envelope, rental agreement and receipt, utility and phone bills, prescription bottles, vehicle registration, vehicle repair, gas receipt, items that tend to show evidence of motive and of identity of the perpetrator. I don't know why I'm getting tongue-tied, y'all. Perpetrator, such as photography, photograph and undeveloped films, insurance policies and letters, address and telephone records, diaries, and other documents which such items are written, typed, or stored in computer disks, object which bear a person's name, phone number, and address, and are located at they wipe that out. Further described as single-story residence with stucco construction, beige in color with white trim. There is a double car garage on the north side of the house, and the garage door in white color. I'm telling you, this is like so much detail. Ooh, the front door faces west and located in the west side of the house and has white metal security doors in front of the entry door. And the numbers blank blank are in black and white background in the west side of the house on the pillow near the front door. As I am satisfied, there is probable cause to believe that the said property is located and set forth above, and that based upon the affidavits attached thereto are significant grounds for the issuance of the search warrant. Furthermore, I acknowledge this is not a no-knock search. This is not a no-knock search warrant. As identified by SB 50 section 1.9. Hereby command the search with forthwith said premises and set properties, serving this warrant anytime, day or night. And if the property is there to seize it, prepare a written inventory and property seize and making a return for him within 10 days. All right, this is the search warrant. This is what they listed. They got Pokeball USB drive. They got a black iPhone with a black case. They got gray iPad with a broken screen model. They gave the model. They got a white iPad with broken screen. They got gold iPad with pink case. They got a purple Toshiba laptop. They got a gray Toshiba laptop. They got a black Toshiba hard drive. They have a gray Sky device tablet in black case. They got a black HP laptop with a charger. They got a black HP desktop computer, the cord and everything. They got a point cartridge. Okay, copy of a book, Compton Street Legend. Got a copy of Vibe magazine on Tupac. They got ported marijuana. They have black Dell laptop, Inspiron. They got documentary document. They got a black tub containing photographs. Okay, that's all the stuff they have right there. Oh, my grand jurist, let me tell you, because Tupac is one of my favorite all time. Y'all going to get so tired of me because I'm going to overdose you on this stuff. I'm going to overdose some of you guys on this stuff because Tupac is one of my favorite of all time. And I've been wanting his murder, people that's whoever murdered him to be held responsible. So I am all for it. If the guy did it, I am all for it. But if he didn't do it, they need to catch the ones that's involved in it. Everybody that's involved with it. That's just justice. We need justice for Tupac. We need justice. All right. So now I have the interview with the nephew, Orlando Anderson. You know, he passed away. Well, he got killed. But I'm gonna play the computer's gonna play this for us today. Okay. Hold on, let's play it.
Interview oral.
Oh, come on now.
Interview Orlando Anderson and his lawyer Anael Campbell did with Sanayika Shakur for Vibe's December 1997 issue. Why did the death row crew zero in on you that night at the MGM? I really don't know why. I don't even know them. Who pushed you first? Actually, I think it was Tupac. What did he say when he first stepped to you? I don't really think he said anything. It happened so fast. All I felt was a swarm. You didn't recognize nobody else. Did you Rakajin shook? I seen him on the videotape later. Where we from in Compton, our first instinct. After being insulted, shoe stepped on, is to respond. Did you feel calling your peeps? Me and my brother ain't like that. I was just scared because I done heard so much about these guys. It was like, damn, what did I do? So you are not a Southside Crip? No. Are you affiliated with the Southside Crips? No, I ain't no gang member. I know a lot of people. I grew up with a lot of people. I went to school with a lot of people. So nobody in. Your immediate family bangs? My brothers? Nah. Besides your brothers? Well, why now I'm saying, there's my uncle and them. The police said that they raided a Southside hangout. and there were guns there and a diploma on the wall with your name on it. Yet you said you lived next door. Anderson's lawyer writes on a yellow notepad and pushes it toward him. I'm not gonna answer that. Campbell, the affidavit is full of fiction. There is nothing in there that's independently corroborated. We don't know why. That particular Compton police officer wrote it, but it's full of lies. It was reported that you were bragging about whacking Machiavelli. You might as well don't even pay attention to the affidavit. That wasn't just the affidavit. People on the street in Compton told Vibe you were bragging about it. Shakes his head. No response. Do they call you Baby Lane? Some people call me that. When I was in jail with Suge Knight, he said. Baby Lane did it. How do you respond to this guy saying you were the shooter? I really don't know why Suge would say something like that. I don't even know Suge. Campbell, as far as we're concerned, whatever Suge Knight is saying, he's saying for just own gain. We've also named him in the lawsuit. There is no evidence against Orlando. If they would do a proper investigation, they would very likely find out who killed Tupac. On the stand, you said Suge was not involved in your beating, that he tried to stop it. Now you're naming him in the lawsuit for participating in your beating. At the time, I was fearing for my life. You were fearing Suge's camp? Death row people? Campbell, we don't want to comment on whom he was fearing. Aren't you worried about perjury charges? Campbell, even at the time, Orlando testified, the judge was very skeptical. People say what they need to say if their safety is threatened. Why change the story now? Are you less scared? Campbell, no, it's not that. Orlando was advised by his lawyers that if he was going to bring this lawsuit then, he would need to bring it now. He suffered injuries. He has damages that he wants to collect on. Anderson, I was kicked in my head, and I was bleeding out of my ear. My hands right here were swollen. How do you feel about Tupac's mother filing this counter suit against you? That's nonsense to me. Campbell, that was done solely in response to the lawsuit we filed. Her lawsuit has absolutely no basis. You were on America's Most Wanted. Have you had any troubles because you were named as a suspect in Tupac's killing? I've been threatened a lot. How has this altered your life? I just stay in the house all the time. Why don't you just get vested and heated and continue to do your things? Life goes on. Even Pac himself said it. I ain't that type of person. I'll just put it in the Lord's hands. Did anybody ever tell you that you are very much resemble Tupac? Yeah, a couple odd people have told me that. Do you feel any resentment toward Tupac's spirit? Like, look at what the hell you done got me into? I think like that all the time, wondering why. Not only put me through a lot of stuff, but put my family through a lot of stuff too. So you have lost passion for Tupac's music. Do you still listen to him? Yeah, I still listen to his music. Because you feel him? Yeah, to me he was like the Marvin Gaye of rap. If he was to comb it with some new music, I'm still about his music. Do you have a favorite Pac song? All Eyes on Me. Especially now, huh? What do you wish at this particular juncture in your life? I wish they would find who did it so I can prove my innocence. Note, Orlando Anderson was killed May 29, 1998. This is what I know about his murder. On May 29, 1998, Orlando Anderson, Michael Stone, and his nephew, Jerry Stone, were in a shootout outside a car wash in Compton. They died at King Drew Medical Center in LA. Michael Reed Giroux was wounded and later arrested in connection with the shooting. No one was ever charged.
All right, so that is the interview with Orlando, and then they gave a little piece about his death and him being in the shootout. But what I wanted to talk about is Mr. Greg Kading. He was the police officer that was working on it. He did an interview. He did an interview with TMZ, and also I think he did an interview with Vlad as well. Hold on, let me just pull up his interview. Just 1 second. And he's talking about the arrest of hold on a second. He did an interview a couple of years ago. And then I'm gonna play what he said. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I gotta mute for a minute. I have to mute for a minute.
My name is Greg Kading. I retired from the LAPD back in 2010 after spending 25 years in law enforcement. In the LAPD, I was assigned to our robbery homicide division, who handled most of the more higher profile type of homicides and robberies in Los Angeles. Before I got assigned to the Biggie Smalls investigation, I really knew very little bit hip hop. I didn't follow that genre of music. I was more of a classic rock and roll guy. Back in the 1990s, there was a lot of gangster rap, and much of the tension that got was because it was directed at the police. So there was already a kind of a hostility between these two subcultures of law enforcement and gangs. I got involved or assigned to Biggie Smalls' murder in 2006. So that was 9 years after he had been killed. It was considered a cold case because there was a lawsuit being waged against the city of Los Angeles and against the police department. And there was concern of a conspiracy involving LAPD officers. I had the good fortune of having a lot of experience with gangs, a lot of experience in narcotic investigations, and experience in homicides. And those were the three ingredients that we needed to bring together to understand what happened in these murders. Typically in a cold case, when you get a case like Biggie's that's 9 years after the fact, most all of the traditional methods of investigation have been exhausted. So we knew that we were going to have to get people into a position where they were compelled to talk. We knew that we were going to have to corner them and give them options of either going to prison or cooperating and telling us what they knew. The key figures in the murders of Biggie and Tupac are, of course, their labels, headed by Sean Combs, which is Bad Boy, Biggie's label, and Suge Knight, which is Death Row, Tupac's label. If you look at it like a pyramid, and you had Bad Boy Records with Sean Combs and Death Row Records with Suge Knight, and then beneath them was their rappers, Biggie and Tupac, and then beneath them was their entourages or gang associates, which were the Crips and the Bloods. The link between the two cases was this history of violence that had been taking place between members of Bad Boy Records and their Trip entourage, and then the members of Death Row Records and their Blood entourage. So there had been conflicts brewing for almost 2 years, with confrontations and a war of words and just disrespecting. And you go back and piece all of those little elements together, and you can see how it fueled the fire, which led up to the shootings of both Tupac and Biggie. Orlando Anderson is absolutely, positively the murderer of Tupac Shakur. Sean Combs was associated back in New York with a high-level drug dealer named Eric Martin. He was known as Zip. Well, Zip was getting his cocaine and his PCP from a West Coast gang member who was a Crip named Keefe D. Keefe D's nephew is Orlando Anderson. He's the individual that got into a fight with Tupac Shakur the night that Tupac was shot. Orlando Anderson's the one that was in the backseat of the white Cadillac that pulled up alongside and shot Tupac. So you've got Combs, Martin, Keefe D, who was also in that white Cadillac and had secured the gun, gave it to his nephew, and his nephew shot and killed Tupac. In 1998, Orlando Anderson was trying to collect a drug debt. He was in Compton at a car wash, and he got into a confrontation where guns were pulled out, a shooting, an exchange of gunfire, and Orlando Anderson was killed at that time in 1998. There's a pretty good chance that Orlando Anderson would have been charged had more time been given to put the case together. But him being dead obviously makes him immune from prosecution. Well, for Sean Combs, I mean, what are his choices really? I mean, is he going to come out and confess to his association with the killers of Tupac Shakur? I mean, that would be professional suicide. He doesn't have a lot of choice but to try to distance himself from the facts as they are. But you also have to understand Combs' position at the time. And it's very understandable, this sense of fear and dread and desperation that he was facing, because he knew that Suge Knight and Suge Knight's goon squad, his gang member associates, were after Combs. They held him responsible for the murder of one of Suge Knight's best friends in Atlanta, a guy named Jake Robles. So this conflict just continued to fuel itself. Combs saw that it wasn't going to be resolved peacefully, and he protected himself by affiliating with these Crip gang members. And they took upon themselves to then kill Tupac Shakur. Biggie was killed by an associate of Suge Knight's. He hired a guy named Poochie to track down Biggie at the Peterson Auto Museum in March of 1997 and wait for him outside. And he pulled alongside and shot into the side of the car and killing Biggie. Poochie was a blood gang member from Compton, well known to Suge Knight, well known to those in Suge Knight's circle. Poochie was a known gunman, a known violent gang member, and he's the perfect guy to recruit for that job. We don't know that Poochie acted alone. We know Poochie was involved, but whether or not he had layoff guys or spotters, we don't know. In 2002, he's riding his motorcycle up Central Avenue. Gunman pulls up behind him and shoots him 10 times in the back and kills him. And so now Poochie's dead. So by the time we get the information about Poochie from the co-conspirator, he's no longer chargeable either, much like Orlando Anderson. We have the confession of a co-conspirator that points directly at Poochie. We had a history of knowledge of Poochie's association with Suge Knight, that when this intermediary came to our attention, is a girl that we call her Teresa Swan. She was a baby mama to Suge Knight. She identified Poochie as the person that had been solicited to do the murder, provided other details that were only known to law enforcement, and said that Suge Knight had solicited it from jail. Seems that fate has caught up with Suge Knight. A couple years ago, he ran over a guy at a burger stand in Compton, killing him, a guy named Terry Carter. And Suge was charged with that murder and was sentenced to 28 years in prison. So we knew that with this information, the LAPD was going to be out from under this grand lawsuit that they had been faced with. Even though they would never agree that I should go public about a unsolved case technically, they also realized that we're educating the public and it's changing the public's perception of what happened in Biggie's murder, and that namely the LAPD had nothing to do with it. I'm going to disclose the facts as they are. I mean, whether they're dead or alive, I'm going to tell the same story because that's my job, is to get to the truth of the matter. I would never provide information or falsely accuse somebody unless I had the evidence to support and back up the claims that were being made. The fact that these people are dead and unprosecutable, that's difficult for the case. But for me to talk about it, I don't care if they're dead or alive or not. I'm going to say the same thing.
That was that guy's thing. But then he turned around. There was a proffer being done with the guy O'Keefe. Remember, we listened to the book, And hey, Spitfire, we listened to the book, and O'Keefe's pissed off at this guy, Greg Kading. He is the officer that was in the room when they was doing the proffer, and he recorded the proffer that was going on. So remember in the book, he was pissed off about that guy doing that. But here's his interview with Vlad. Fair use, Vlad. Okay, here we go.
One person in the car that's still alive, Keefe D.
That's it.
The Keefe D tapes get released.
Correct.
And then the murder rap documentary comes out.
Right.
Originally, when Keefe D did the confession, did he assume that this would be like sealed up and never see the light of day?
Absolutely. I believe that was his mindset, is that it would never come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it comes out.
And I doubt that he even knew that it was recorded. You know, he probably was unaware of the fact that it was being recorded.
Oh, so there wasn't a tape recorder right there when, oh, it was like a hidden recorder?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
So he was being secretly recorded by the police while giving his confession?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's legal?
Oh, absolutely. All day long.
All day long.
Yeah, when you go into a police interview room, you better expect that there's a recording going on. You're not going to see the recorder, but it's...
Oh,
you know,
wow. Oh, that's how it's done these days.
watch any crime documentary and you're sitting there watching videotape of a guy being interviewed, and that guy doesn't necessarily know that there's a videotape on.
Okay. Was he videotaped or just audio recorded?
Just audio recorded. Yeah, because we did it wasn't at the police station. We actually did the interviews at his lawyer's office.
But no, they're supposed to tell them that they're being recorded. At least here, I know they have to tell you that you're being recorded, and they show you the recording thing. So I didn't know they could do it without your knowledge. I didn't know that.
And you guys just had tape recorders on you? I mean, recording on you?
Small little concealable recorders.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
These tapes come out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you actually, before releasing these tapes, you actually go and meet up?
Yeah, you did say that earlier about it. And now I guess they changed his mind since he got the recording. Yeah, you did say that. Hold on.
DVD.
Right.
How did that conversation go?
As expected, I knew that we needed to kind of be really direct with him, let him know that what he was facing as far as the case we built against him, and to give him the option of cooperating. My objective throughout this whole thing was not to put a drug case on Keefe D. My objective through this whole thing was to solve the murder of Tupac and Biggie. And so, but that was a device or a tool that we used in order to accomplish that objective. So we go, as Keefe D, here's the deal. We've been listening to your phones. We've been tracking you. We've got intercepting drugs. We're intercepting money. We have informants. We have an airtight case against you. You need to call your attorney and come meet with us and have a conversation. So that afternoon, we all end up in Los Angeles. He has his attorney. We're at the U.S. Attorney's office. Sit down. The prosecuting attorney, Tim Seawright, Keefe's attorney, Wayne Higgins. They compare notes, and Keefe D and his attorney go off and have a conversation. They come back and say Keefe D wants to cooperate. So let's start scheduling interviews.
Right. But what I'm saying is fast forward however many years, you actually tell Keefe D, you meet with Keefe D and say, I'm about to release these tapes.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yeah. So before, right when I was publishing the book, I didn't tell him I was going to come out with the tapes. I just told him I was publishing a book based on the investigation, including his confession. And so I tell him that we're sitting in my truck. We're down in front of his house in Corona, California. I was like, here's the deal, Keefe D. I'm retired. I'm going to release a book. It's going to detail everything that happened in the investigation, including what you had to say. I just want to give you a heads up because who knows, what the consequences of all this will be. And he says, hey, bring it on. I'm a gangster. I can deal with this shit.
Were you armed when you went to go meet with Keefe D to tell him this?
Probably. I don't specifically remember, but I was always really kind of complacent about that. Sometimes I had guns, sometimes I didn't. Like when we were in his garage that one day initially, when we first confronted him, I didn't have a gun on me. Thankfully, my partner did.
Okay.
But, I didn't do police work that way. It's really low key, which is not the way you should be doing it, by the way.
I mean, there was no fear of like, hey, when I tell this guy that I'm about to release these tapes, he might try to kill me.
Yeah, probably. I mean, obviously, I'm smart enough to recognize that that's a possibility. Yeah, I probably had a gun. I may have had one, under the, who knows? I don't remember, to be honest with you. But certainly, I'm aware of what he's capable of. But I also understand that we've built a rapport. I've interviewed him, and there's to some degree a mutual, respect. And, is he going to really just pull out a gun and shoot a guy in front of his house who's a retired cop and bring all of those problems upon himself?
So these tapes come out, and now there wasn't any sort of gray area or conspiracy theory talk when it came around that. It was, it was like, okay, that's Keefe D. Like I've interviewed people who knew Keefe D,
right.
And I played them the tape, and they're like, that's Keefe D.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that's someone else on tape. This whole thing is Hollywood production used to sell books. It was established across the board that this is Keefe D confessing to all this.
Most certainly.
Did you speak to Keefe D after the tapes were released?
No.
I've spoken to him actually a couple times.
Yeah. I guess a number of people have.
Yeah.
Clearly, he would not trust having a conversation with me anymore because he knows I'm going to tape it and release it.
Right.
So, yeah, but he's become vocal about it. He's not running and hiding from what he said.
It's funny because I get accused of being the police and everything else like that. And I explain to people that, when you do an interview with me, you're wearing a wire that you put on yourself.
Right.
You run it under your own shirt, and there's another one pointing at you right now.
Right.
And there's 2 video cameras pointing at you. There's no gray area on whether or not you're being taped or not.
Exactly.
You, on the other hand, are actually taping conversations secretly.
Yeah, which is standard procedures in law enforcement. There's no expectation, and I hear it's clear. You got cameras, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
But in the law enforcement environment, in the police environment, you don't have an expectation of privacy. You know that you're being investigated. You know that it's for a reason, and you know they're going to use that information if they can.
Yeah.
So there's no expectation of privacy, which allows us to secretly record legally.
But don't they have to have a hold on a second. Hold on a second. Don't they have to have a don't they have to have a search warrant or a warrant for them to do surveillance like that? I thought you have to do that.
On 3, 1.
Hold on, I gotta mute. Hey DJ Kwame. Hey DJ. I'm just gonna say hey DJ. Okay, I'm gonna play the interview he had yesterday. That same detective. Hold on.
He is a former Los Angeles police detective known for his decade-long work on a multi-agency task force investigating the murders of Tupac and Biggie Smalls. Greg, thank you so much for being here. I keep wondering if Suge Knight knows something or saw something. Has he been able to be helpful in this investigation at all? Will he make an appearance at any trial as a witness?
No, Suge's not going to step forward and provide any information. He's never been helpful. He's known all along who was responsible for shooting into the car with Tupac and him. He's always known. He looked directly at Keefe D. They locked eyes. He always knew who the assailants were, and he's never done anything to try to solve that. So I don't think we can expect him to now.
Well, given the fact that Keefe D, wrote this book 5 years ago and implicated himself, talked about procuring the gun, handing it to the back seat. I mean, that almost sounded to me like it was enough for a prosecutor. I'm sort of surprised it wasn't enough. What do you think, or what do you know they found when they executed that warrant that led 2 months later to where we are today with an arrest?
Well, after all this time, it's very unlikely that they found anything that had much investigative value. The strength of this indictment, the strength of this arrest, and the strength of this prosecution lies solely on the confessions that Keefe D has made since 2009. He's just reiterated over and over his involvement, and all of that has been substantiated. So now he's talked himself straight into prison.
So the siblings of Tupac, I just spoke with Mo Preem, and his sister has released a significant statement saying they think that there's more to it. They think there may be more conspirators. Do you think there are more conspirators other than the 4 who were in that car, one still alive in charge, the others already dead?
No, those are the 4 guys that are directly responsible for it. There was a lot of ancillary activity going on between the beef with Bad Boy and Death Row and Tupac and Biggie and Suge and Puffy. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff going on, but ultimately when it comes down to this murder, it was the 4 guys in that car, and 3 of them, as you've mentioned, are already passed on. Keefe D's the last man standing. And I'll tell you this, Keefe D's nephew, who was the one that pulled the trigger, Afeni Shakur has always known that Orlando Anderson was responsible for her son's murder. But now we're getting all of the conspirators. And Keefe D is going to have to face the consequences of his own personal involvement.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Okay, that was that one. This is what you were saying, Pumpkin, earlier. Hold on. Hold on a second.
It has often been said, justice delayed is justice denied. It's a quote we hear often and for many, many years when talking about our legal system, but not in this case. Today, justice will be served in the murder of Tupac Shakur. A Clark County grand jury has indicted Duane Keith Davis with 1 count of open murder with use of a deadly weapon with a gang enhancement. Tupac Shakur is a music legend, and for a long time, this community and worldwide have been wanting justice for Tupac. Tupac was actually quoted as saying, "Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside while still alive. Never surrender." This is the indictment we've been waiting almost 3 decades for. Justice will be served. It has often been said.
Okay, sorry. So that is that part. I'm going to bring some more stuff to you. Hold on.
So much for being on the show and being with us at Hot 97 all the way from the West Coast. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Just for people who are watching, what was your role during these times, Biggie's murder and for Tupac's murder?
Well, my role was as a homicide investigator. I was working for the LAPD. There was a lawsuit being waged against the city by Valletta Wallace and her estate, alleging that there was corruption related to the murder, that either cops were involved directly in the murder or they were covering it up. And so as a result of this lawsuit, they put together a task force of individuals. I was one of those individuals, and we were re-investigating Biggie's murder. And just kind of by default, we started to investigate Tupac's murder because of the evidence that we were developing in the investigation.
So for a lot of us, when we first heard this, we were so confused initially, like how, why is there all this evidence? The evidence was kind of clear, not clear, which is why we're so thankful that you actually have this movie to explain in depth what was going on. So why did you decide to keep investigating the murders of Tupac and Biggie?
Well, when I was on the police department, it was my job, it was my responsibility. And that's when we developed all the critical evidence and came to the conclusions that we came to in both of the two murder investigations. But afterwards, when I left the department, I retired in 2010 and decided to publish a book so that we could inform the public as to what we discovered in the investigation.
In the movie, because, you know, people don't know what to expect, there's been so many different documentaries about Tupac and Biggie. So, you know, what is it about this film that's going to be so different that obviously is worth everybody's time?
This film is different because we're not proposing a theory. Everything that preceded this was theoretical. It's speculation. It's what could have happened. And we're not coming at it from that approach. We're telling you definitively, this is what took place in these murders. All of the empirical evidence, all of the facts lead you to draw this one and only conclusion. And so we're not competing against theories. We're claiming to know the truth.
Can you kind of explain as much as you can who in this or is, I guess, behind the Tupac murder or the Biggie murder, and what details will they be able to see in the movie?
Well, what we tried to do was explain how there was an evolution of conflict between the CEOs of the two major record labels, you know, with Sean Combs out on the East Coast and Bad Boy and Suge Knight out here with Death Row. There was conflict at the CEO level. There was conflict at the artist level between, you know, Biggie and Tupac. And then the gangs that the labels were associating with were natural enemies, Crips and Bloods. But once things got personal within these record labels, then the Crips and Bloods were obviously at war together too. And that's what culminated, those three levels of conflict culminated in the murders of Tupac and Biggie.
What happens that you have all this evidence and it seems like there's still no closure? We still have no real arrests. We can't officially say, yes, this person did it. He XYZ, he, she, whatever. Why can't we do that, especially when you do have evidence? This isn't based off opinions.
Right. Well, you've got to keep in mind at the chain of events. You know, in 2009, when we get the confessions of the co-conspirators in these murders, at that point in time, the shooters in both murders are already dead. Ordell Faust from the mob Piru, who shot Biggie, and Orlando Anderson from the Southside Crips, who shot and killed Tupac. Those guys are already dead. Now we're just focusing on the co-conspirators. And then over a period of time, those guys start dying. As you know, Eric Martin out in New York, Zip, Bucky's associate, he died. And then just recently, the driver of the white Cadillac, Terrence Brown, also was shot and killed in Compton on an unrelated thing. So we've lost so much of the foundation of a prosecution. And you just can't practically go into court and face an icon like Puffy Combs and say, hey, we're going to base this allegation on the testimony of a convicted drug dealing gang member. It's just not a practical, matter for prosecution. And there will never be judicial closure in these cases, ever. It's a lost cause. So you're going to have to accept the facts that we're presenting and then make your own determination whether that's conclusive enough for you to close the book.
What do you think is the difference between all the information you gathered and the theories beforehand? Because there was this big theory with Anthony Mack and Amir Muhammad beforehand. Why couldn't prior investigations get the same kind of information that you guys did?
That's a great question. And you have to understand the nature of a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory starts with a conclusion and then works backwards to find evidence to support the conclusion. In an investigation, in an objective investigation, you start with no conclusions and you just follow the facts and the evidence as you discover them. And so that's the big difference. A conspiracy theory works backwards from a foredrawn conclusion. We went into it saying anything could be true. What do the facts and the evidence tell us? And that's the difference. So you've got our approach from inside out versus the conspiracy approach from outside with very limited access in.
In murder rap, so that people have an understanding, the conspiracies and everything that you talk about with the evidence that you have, what caused Tupac's murder?
An evolution of conflict. With Suge Knight, he always held Puffy responsible for what happened to his friend in Atlanta back in, was it 95, when Jake Robles was killed outside of a nightclub, and he held Puffy responsible for that. And so there was this tit for tat back and forth. There was armed conflicts with the gangs, backstage at different award shows. And, there was just constant, blood had already been spilled. There's public dissing going on. And then Tupac makes the fatal mistake of involving himself with the drama going on with the gangs. And when he jumps into that fight with Orlando Anderson at the MGM in Las Vegas, that was his fatal mistake. Leading up to that, in December of '99, one of Puffy Combs' associates was abducted out in Los Angeles and taken and beaten severely, with Tupac being involved, and Suge Knight and other members of the mob Pyru, and they beat this guy silly and almost lost his eye, actually. And all of that was done in an attempt because Suge Knight was trying to find out where Puffy Combs' family residence was in Los Angeles. Puffy obviously found out about it, and he was in a very desperate situation. He knew if he came to the West Coast, Suge had a target. Or that, he had a target on his back, and Suge was going to hunt him down. And it was out of that desperation and fear that he began to associate and solicit the help of these Crip gang members.
When this all came out, when obviously everyone's been talking about the movie Murder Rap, which is coming to Netflix soon, it's on iTunes, make sure you guys check it out. And Puffy came out and said that basically this is fiction.
He needs another PR guy, I'll tell you. He just needs somebody who will come out with something more original, because that's the standard line. This is pure fiction and completely ridiculous. Which is what he says to every allegation that's ever posed against him. And, I understand why he can't come out and essentially take responsibility. I get that. But he knows that this is not pure fiction.
And there's no motive for you other than you finding the truth, because it's not like you're emotionally, personally invested in Tupac's life or in Biggie's life. So this is just truly you going over the facts, the evidence, and trying to give the fans some type of closure that we've been all wanting for so long.
That's true. I self-published my book. This wasn't financially motivated. It's just, like I've said before, with knowledge comes responsibility. And when you know things and the public has a right to know those things, it's irresponsible not to share the information. And so that was the motive of the book. And then, of course, understanding the audience of, the urban audience and the rap audience, it's better done in a documentary form.
Absolutely.
Not a lot of guys are downloading and reading books.
So by the end of the movie, you interview Teresa Swan, and then it's almost like the rug got pulled under you. Do you think they care about solving or the Biggie murder at all? Like, are we ever going to get any kind of more? Are we ever going to get the full story out on Biggie's murder, like we did with Pac's?
Well, you're going to get the full story we're telling you who the co-conspirators are. We're telling you that it was retaliation. Biggie was killed as a retaliation for Tupac's murder in Vegas and the shooting of Suge Knight. And so it's a really rather simple explanation when you just look at the facts. But as far as the LAPD ever coming out and saying, hey, we want to take responsibility for our failures, it's never going to happen. The police department does as good a job serving its own self-interest as it does serving the public's interests at times. And there's just no motive for them to come out and kind of fall on the sword and take responsibility for their shortcomings.
In your opinion, Greg, is there any way that, we can make them take responsibility, or do you just think it's a lost cause at this point?
It's a lost cause. For a long time, I've suggested that they publicly just say that they've cleared the case. If it was not a sensational celebrity murder, If this was just your average person that was killed, this would have been cleared hands down, and it would have been a solved case. But because it dealt with the lawsuit and the celebrity nature of these guys, and all of these scandals, media attention, they're just not willing to do that.
I just wanted to touch base a little bit. When you were doing the investigation and you were interviewing Teresa, why did it end at that point? What was like, I mean, I felt like you were so close to sealing the deal, finding, answers. Why did that stop at that point? Like, what happened with the letter? Like, after that point, like, where do we go?
Well, once at that period of time, when we developed the evidence to conclusively be able to determine who killed Biggie, obviously the police department shared that evidence with Valletta Wallace's attorneys, and they realized that any further pursuit of this lawsuit is really kind of a waste of time and money because we can disprove the claims. And so once the lawsuit was then retracted by the Wallace estate, the LAPD lost its initiative. It lost its motivation. It spent a lot of time and money and energy, faced a lot of allegations, and I think they were just basically tired of it.
So the motive, my understanding for the LAPD, was to show that they weren't involved in it, and that's why really you got on the case, so that this could get finalized, that there was no corruption within them, because I guess I'm a little bit confused right there.
I understand your question. It's a great question. I think it can be very easily misunderstood. The LAPD never told us, go out and disprove our involvement. They said, go out and solve the crime, whatever it may be. If it turns out that it's David Mack and Amir Mohammed, then so be it. We'll fall on that sword. We have to, and that's why I said, fine, if that's what we're going to do, then we're bringing in the feds. We want to have that oversight. So I believe the LAPD believed that they weren't involved. There was no evidence to support the allegations that were made. However, they let us have free reign to go out and find out for ourselves as investigators. But once having accomplished that, once we came back and said, okay, we know what happened, and it wasn't us, they said, good, we're done.
Why not publicize that? Like, I don't understand why not. Like, if it wasn't for you, I believe so many of us fans would still think that they are the reason and were involved in Biggie's murder.
Yeah, and you've also got to take into consideration that the community already, at large has a mistrust of law enforcement, mistrust of cops, especially today. It's worse today than it was back in the late 90s or when I got on the case. It's worse now than ever. But because they already have this kind of preconceived idea of how corrupt cops are, it's very difficult for them to then, accept on the face value of what we're claiming. So I think that's an obstacle that we're constantly fighting about. We're like, hey, don't rely on your preconceived notions about law enforcement. Listen to the facts that we're presenting and make a logical determination based on that. And, which it's hard to do.
Right.
Because we do have corruption. We do have bad cops. And, we don't pretend that that's not true. There's a lot of problems in law enforcement, but they're overwhelmingly also a lot of good. And so that's, the dilemma.
Have you, or I guess during the investigation, have you guys tried to reach out to Puffy or, try to have a real conversation like, hey, one, we're just going over the facts, and two, we understand maybe your obvious concern, but has there been any attempt with that?
Of course. During the investigation, there was attempts. We had investigators from Los Angeles go to New York and try to interview him in regard to Christopher's homicide. And, he wouldn't speak with the homicide investigators. He has his lawyers who insulate him. And, it's probably in his best interest not to talk to us. So there have been attempts that we can't force somebody to sit down and do an interview.
Totally understandable. So in Murder Rap, another, there's just so many different reasons why someone should watch it, but in it, there's a clear explanation of Puffy's role in this, because I think sometimes, when we see headlines, we don't really know, kind of know, he's saying it's fiction. So can you just briefly tell us exactly what people will see in the movie and get a better understanding of?
Yes, I think that it will put the situation into its proper context. To understand this, you have to go back to 1995, 96, and 97 and understand the environment of what was taking place between these crews and between these individuals. And you have to put it and understand it in that context. You have to understand Puffy's very precarious situation he was in. And, he either did something to protect himself, or potentially he was going to end up, at the wrong end of a bullet. And so I want people to understand that context, because it's important. The headlines just say, hey, documentary claims that Tupac, that Diddy killed Tupac. It's not fair to the truth of the story.
After all these findings and everything, have you ever gotten in touch or gotten a chance to talk to any of Tupac's or Biggie's family members at all?
I did. Before I actually published the book, I went out to Pennsylvania. I went to Valletta's house and sat down and explained to her what we had discovered in the investigation. I gave her a copy of the book. We shed a few tears together. It was a very intense encounter. So yes, I did. I met with Valletta and explained to her what we had found out. And then I also made an attempt to reach Afeni Shakur, but instead I was diverted to her sister Gloria. I explained the same thing to Gloria. The response I got from the Shakur family was that, thank you very much, we appreciate everything you've done, but basically we already know what you're saying. We already know what you're claiming. And then I got to know Tupac's cousin William Lassane on a personal level and spent some time with him here at my house. So I feel like I've made an attachment to the families, and that they recognize that this effort was a genuine effort just to bring closure to them.
So Greg, when did you actually get involved? When were you hired to investigate Biggie's murder?
In 2006.
What was the delay?
The delay was the case had gone cold. In both Biggie and Tupac's murder investigations, they were very difficult to investigate from a law enforcement perspective, from a law enforcement standpoint, because nobody really wanted to cooperate. The nature of the people that were involved and knew, they just weren't going to come and sit down with the police and start ratting out their friends. So from a law enforcement perspective, they're very difficult cases to solve. And because of that, because we weren't getting the kind of cooperation we needed, the cases grew cold. And then they were cold cases, no proactive investigation going on. And it wasn't until the impetus of the lawsuit against the city where the LAPD said, holy shit, can I cuss?
Yes, absolutely.
The LAPD, started to recognize we need to solve this, because if we need to get to the bottom of this. And they allowed us to follow any lead that we discovered. And that's the reason I approached the department and said, we need to federalize this. Let's bring in all the federal agencies. Let's get a task force with federal oversight. And that way, at the end of the day, when people say, hey, it's just the LAPD still covering up for themselves, it's a moot point, because we've now brought in the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and it was a collective effort where we all came to the same conclusion.
How long did it take you to find all of this evidence once you got on board?
It was years. I mean, we had to come up with creative ways to try to get people to cooperate and to talk to us. Years had gone by. And now it was a matter of trying to come up with a new way to approach this, a new investigative strategy to try to get the cooperation from the people we knew would have some information to help us move forward.
Do you feel that when these murders initially happened, that the LAPD, the Las Vegas Police Department did a thorough job trying to get this resolved in a timely manner? Because it seemed like you did a way better job than they did. And I'm just curious, why then they'd find this exact same evidence and or more because it happened then.
I think they did thorough jobs. I just don't think that they were creative. They weren't thinking outside of the box. They were just kind of going through the investigative 101 approach. Talk to people and evaluate your physical evidence. And at the end of the day, if you don't have anything to move forward with, you just sit back and wait for someone to call. They could have been much more proactive. In the Tupac case, you had this obstacle where Las Vegas is, in another state. All the culprits involved with death row records and the Southside Crips, they're all in Compton or in Los Angeles. And so because of this kind of distance, it made it more difficult for Las Vegas to really make any headway. And there were issues with Compton PD back at the time because there were off-duty officers working, moonlighting for death row records. And so Las Vegas PD was like, well, hold on, who do we trust? If we, how do we maintain the integrity of our investigation, but yet rely on people who might be compromised within law enforcement? So it made it very difficult for them. In Los Angeles, I think that we could have done a much better job with the Biggie investigation. They needed to take gang experts and utilize gang experts to make headway. And they used guys that weren't necessarily that intuitive about how gangs work and how to break the ice with the gangs.
Now, have you ever been worried about your life during any of this, Greg?
No, I don't think you go into the law enforcement field worried about, what's going to happen when you investigate crimes. If you are, if you're in fear of that, then you shouldn't become a cop. This is the nature of that, of that profession. I think that you run into trouble and you have a reason to fear when you start lying on people and you are misrepresenting or making false allegations. And those people that are out there promoting these conspiracy theories and falsely accusing people like Harry Billups and Mir Mohammed, falsely accusing people like Reggie Wright and Sharitha Knight, when you're falsely accusing those people, that's when I think you're putting your life in harm's way. But when you tell the truth, I think the truth is the best defense, both in court and in public.
And I think it's important. I just want everyone to know when this does, show up on Netflix, it's definitely worth watching. This isn't based off opinions. There's evidence. You could see the work. And, maybe we'll never get the final closure that we all as fans want. But, I think this is the closest we'll ever get. And I think it helps heal so many of our hearts. So, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm so appreciative.
Okay, that was the interview that he had 7 years ago with with the radio station. So that's Greg Kading. That's the one that he talked about in the book. The one he couldn't stand. He didn't know he was recording him. And he seemed like he's been on Vlad a lot of time. It seemed like he's been on Vlad a lot. Well, yeah, as I dig through this whole thing, I will be bringing you guys updates on this because, you were saying the Christmas. Okay, you said people always talk about the incident at the mall in 96 with Orlando in LA, but I believe it goes back to Christmas party in 95. That was the spark. You stay down the street from the Lakewood Mall? Oh, he put a track on Suge Knight's car. The Kading tries to put a track on not Tupac, on Suge Knight's car. But that's crazy, all this craziness. Maybe we'll learn some more stuff. Well, DJ, I would love to get to hear more because you seem very well knowledgeable about everything that's happening. I would love for you to come and talk about it. And it may not be tonight, or because I'm not getting off of this case. Because like I told you guys, Tupac is one of my favorite artists. Hold on a second. There's somebody else has had an interview, and I'm gonna put it up. Hold on a second. Hold on. I got muted for a minute. Okay, anybody know Big G? DJ, do you know anything about Big Gene? Big Gene? You know anything about Big Gene? Big Gene Deal speaks on Keefe Diddy and Little Stanky. Do y'all know anything about him? Is he anybody affiliated with, or he's just another blogger? Is he just another blogger? Do y'all know anything about this dude? DJ, do you know anything about Gene? Janine Deal. That's Biggie bodyguard? Okay. So we should listen to it. Let's see what he got to say.
I told you I was coming in about 4.
Oh, hold on.
To Kading or whatever proper agreement that he had and stuff like that. When he spoke to them, it had nothing to do with Las Vegas and their law. It had nothing to do with Las Vegas and their law. And I told y'all, Basil, thanks for the money, y'all. Thanks for the cash apps. But please, I want to get through this. I don't want to disrespect y'all by not shouting y'all out because y'all support me. Check this out. I told y'all it had nothing to do with the deal he made with Kading, the deal he made with the U.S. attorney had nothing to do with what Las Vegas was going to do. I know some of y'all remember that. Some of you may don't. Now, me thinking that the proper agreement and the U.S. attorney may save him, when I got into what the proper agreement is all about, it don't save you at all. The U.S. attorney in the background between you and your lawyer, they let you know if you get in any trouble or any kind of situation, they'll try to help you get a lenient sentence, or they'll try to put in a good word for you. But we're not putting that on paper. So now, Keefe D, based on what this detective said, they gave him enough information in 2018 to start gathering information for the next 5 years to lead to Keefe D's arrest. Let me tell y'all, that's a bunch of bullshit. That's a bunch of bullshit. When they first heard Keefe D say, I was in the car. Somebody gave me a gun, supposed to have been zipped. I tried to pass the gun with Dre, but he didn't take it. And Orlando did the shooting. When Keefe D first did that and said that, if Las Vegas wanted to lock his ass up, that was enough evidence. He put himself at the scene and he told the story. He put himself at the scene and he told the story. Soon as that hit the papers, soon as that hit the news, Las Vegas had enough to get on top of his. Now, let me bring y'all up to speed. You understand? Let me bring y'all up to speed. Do you remember when I told y'all that Diddy made a lot of people mad and upset? And he may be losing some of his power. He definitely lost it in the marketing. Antoine Hinton, this is the wrong time to be a new member, but I appreciate it because I owe you a member song, brother. Anyway, these people are working behind the scenes because they know Keefe D had said that Diddy had some kind of involvement in a murder for hire scheme, allegedly. He made statements alluding to the fact that Diddy owed him something from the protection he gave us while we was running back and forth to Cali. These people that's in the multi-million-dollar lawsuit that he has against them has marketing people, has publicists. They have people that will work behind the scene to make anybody that's suing them look bad. Y'all notice, all this shit started coming out, all this AI shit started coming out about Diddy, all these people messing with him. I was doing it way before that, so I don't count. Me don't count. All these people messing with him and doing that came after he said those people at the liquor place, Deleon or something like that, was racist, and he put in a lawsuit against them. I want y'all to think they gotta dirty him up. The motherfucker already dirty, but they gotta dirty him up. So, what better at this time to do than to put pressure and have people put pressure on the Las Vegas Police Department? Because you got to realize Tupac is in the Hard Rock Hall of Fame, which is the Hard Rock Cafe. They give big, what is it? Inaugural inductees out there in Vegas. They people put pressure on the Vegas Police Department. Because you know the Vegas Police Department, they got a $500 million budget. So now they get people to work behind the doors to put pressure because they know or they figure, or they assume that Keefe D may have more to tell about Diddy than he told the first time. He may have more to tell than he did the first time. Now, check this out. You gotta wonder, why did Keefe D go live in Vegas? Why did Keefe D speak on a murder? Because any jailhouse lawyer, any dude that wanna play lawyer, any lawyer and his lawyers that he paid a lot of money for, know that murder has no statute of limitation. Murder has no statute of limitation at all. You ain't gotta be the sharpest knife in the drawer to know I'm not gonna live somewhere. I'm not gonna speak on nothing that these people can bring me in at any given time. You put that nigga brain in a bird, it'll fly backwards at this time. And that's what it is. So now, y'all wondering, does Diddy have anything to worry about? Keefe D was given a proper agreement, which is queen for a day. If you got anything to tell us, and we ask you about this, we're gonna speak on it. This right here, man, come on. Yo, France, we're not doing this today, bro. I'm doing a show later. Cut this shit off. So now, they got a list of all the shit he told them. And had he told them anything to implicate Diddy in anything, they want to know. They heard Diddy say, I put $1 million on your head. They heard me say, he said in 96, 97, he said in 96, I don't give a fuck if Pac gotta die, I don't give a fuck if Big gotta die. Suge Knight can go to jail. I'm tired of living my life like this. They heard all that shit. That shit is recorded. That shit is on YouTube, Bluetooth, and everything else. So my whole thing about it is this. They already know all this shit. What else can Keefe D tell them or change his story? If he does that. If he does that, that means maybe he lose the deal with Kading them. I don't know how that shit is written up over there. Because you know how them niggas out there in LA do it. They as crooked as they come. The cops, the commissioners, all that shit. The councilmen, the Congress, all that. But we'll get to California later. Holding that information back on Big's death. So now, Puff has already spoke to the lawyers and had his lawyers speak to friends and people. When you got a lot of money and you big like that, don't think they have not already been in touch. He's been in touch with somebody who's in touch with somebody that touches somebody that know what somebody's supposed to know. That's when you got big dollars and people got friends behind the scene. And they already let him know if he has something to worry about. Niggas in the city of Miami and some kind of go-kart or golf course cart, telling the police to suck him off. You think he worried? Now, Keefe D. Y'all gotta understand this. The legal, and the lawyers will tell you, you can indict a ham sandwich.
Okay, I'm tired of this guy. I want to hear that. I want to hear Frank Alexander. Hold on a second. I'm gonna put that one. Hold on.
RJ, here's your phone. Remember I told you the phones were there.
Right. Now, was this where you called Reggie, find out what was going on?
This is when he told me, now keep this in mind, everybody's going in. Now, the phones are changing. Look, the phones have changed because these are different phones now.
Right, yeah, that's a static, yeah.
Touch the keys.
No, yeah, see.
You gotta touch the middle. No, don't you respect it.
Yeah.
No, hold on. Let's get serious. These are the phones. But these phones were old phones, and we were standing here. Everybody's going in the fight. So all that footage you had over there, don't use any of that. Because these are the phones we were buying. Everybody's going in the fight. And this area is all roped off, right, for people to go into the fight.
So walk up and down by the phone.
You walk up and down like here by the phones and walk past me because I'm just like standing here. Then you're going to stop and talk to me, and then I'm going to pick up the phone.
So walk past you twice?
Yeah, a couple of times, just like walk by me. Come back. And then come back and stop at me.
Yeah, you need to
quit
switch.
talking to me like, I'm like,
Wait, now, okay, keep doing that because I'm gonna hit it in reverse.
Thank you. Oh, guys, I gotta play my music. Gotta play my music, y'all, because I just got a Cash App. Hold on. I gotta play my music.
Money, so much money, so much money.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angie, for that Cash App. Guys, I'm telling you, this you're gonna get I guess I'm gonna get on some of you guys' nerve with this Tupac thing here. I've been digging all day long and just like going through different books and things like that. This is this here is one of my personal passion, because now that they got this person, I'm telling you, I'm going to cover this story. I'm going to trial. I am. This is a passion. Oh my God, it's just like It's you guys gonna. It's gonna probably get on your nerve, but this is something I have to do. I have to do. Okay. DJ, remember Frank being on a farm or a horse's stable while talking? Okay. But see, you know what, guys? This is what I don't understand. The detective said that they had the answers back since 2009, right? Why it took so long to even arrest him? Why didn't they do it before all of them died? If they had the answers all this time. Because remember the detective said he went to Tupac's family, his mom. No, it says, yeah, his mom, because his mom was still alive for a little while. I mean, she died since I've been in Georgia because they had a little thing down here. They had a whole neighborhood thing. There was Tupac's, like a museum for Tupac on Memorial Drive. And his mom used to come, and she used to come out there and speak. So I've seen her in person. So why did they wait till like his immediate family passed away? Only person's back alive, I think his sisters and stuff like that is still alive. But his parents are gone. It's kind of weird. Hold on. Who was scared for his life? Stephanie says, remember Frank being on a farm stable while talking? We read that one already. Steph, it's 3 of them. What's 3 of them? What's 3 of them? I didn't know what y'all was typing. Hold on, let me go back and do these. Okay, hold on. Oh, Frank Alexander is deceased, y'all? It says R.I.P. Frank Alexander. He's deceased? He died? Oh, I didn't know that. When did he die? Okay, they have okay. This is a audio of him talking. Frank Alexander admits a false chain story and details death row threats. And second statement in Tupac's case. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna play it.
Here, my time. Shoot me quickly or anything like that. Just let me know when you're available to talk. I'll give you a call back. All right, done. Thanks.
It's a phone recording.
This is a J Mix exclusive.
Hold on. I had to mute this because they have a music that is playing here, but it's actually a statement I'm reading from a homicide statement. It says Mr. Hold on a second. Let me stop it right here. It says first of all, Mr. Alexander, we come to California and you and I have spoken a couple of on the phone since your initial interview in this, correct? Okay, this must be his statement. Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me see something. I gotta go see if I can pull it up on the internet. It's a statement that he did. Hold on. It's music playing and I don't want to play the music. Okay, it's 2000, September 7, 1996. Murder with a deadly weapon, specific crime, Las Vegas, Clark County, Frank Alexander statement. Let me go see if I can find that. Frank Alexander statement. Frank Alex.
Prologue. For nearly 20 years, I've endeavored to uncover the truth surrounding the killing of Tupac Shakur. Perhaps no one will ever know for certain who pulled the trigger, although police have said they know who did it. What is known is this: the gunman got away with murder. Not since John Lennon was cut down on the streets of New York City was a major entertainment figure murdered at the pinnacle of his popularity. As in the Lennon killing, Shakur's death resonated far beyond the world of musical entertainment. Unlike the Lennon killing, Tupac's murder was never officially solved. From the start, my goal was to separate fact from fiction in the tremendously high-profile case. Much of the information I gathered and presented in the first edition of this book, published in 1997, had never before been seen in print. In some cases, I identified errors previously reported and replaced them with the facts as I learned them and knew them to be true. This book is based on interviews, research, and observations that began the day Tupac was shot. I gleaned information from a prodigious paper trail, including county, city, police, and legal documents and records. I perused hundreds, if not thousands, of newspaper and magazine articles. In piecing together the events of September 7th, 1996, and the aftermath, I diligently and painstakingly checked and rechecked the facts. At the time, I was a police reporter by trade. It was my job to get it right. I interviewed more than 200 people about the case. More than 100 are cited. Some of my sources provided background information only, and their names were not included in the text. Although I had many conversations with Shakur family members and their attorneys, agents, and assistants, Tupac's mother, Afeni Shakur, did not submit to an interview. Instead, I included the few published comments she made about Tupac's death. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, known as Metro, was forthcoming at times and less so at others. Through the years, Las Vegas cops have been notoriously tight-lipped, all the way up the chain of command to the highest levels. Long-term former Sheriff John Moran, now deceased, consistently refused to talk to reporters. Even when he retired in December 1994, Moran declined to give a final interview, standing his ground and closing his door to the press one last time. It's a Las Vegas tradition to snub reporters. That attitude carried over into the administration of Sheriff Jerry Keller, who was at the helm of the department when Tupac was murdered. Although Keller did talk to the media, he often became openly indignant and critical of reporters when the questions got too tough. And although homicide detectives and others close to the Tupac Shakur case were understandably reluctant at times to discuss certain aspects of it, they eventually provided enough details to allow me to construct an accurate portrayal of the events surrounding the criminal investigation.
Mm. Okay, this is like intriguing. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm gonna finish playing these recordings. I don't know if we can hear them too well. Hold on a second. What I'm doing right now, y'all, is there's a statement from the guy from Frank Alexander. Frank Alexander. Oh gosh, it says my mouse is low. Battery is low on my mouse. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second. It says here. His account is suspended. Oh, I was going to just look at his
This is a J Mix exclusive.
All I did was try to bridge him and some other guys, and I'm trying to tell him he need to apologize to them, or they was going to.
Okay, this is Reggie Wright Jr. tries to cover up his track. Okay.
As far as if he didn't apologize.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Okay, sorry. He's singing that song. Hold on. I didn't even know he was going to put that song in there. Hold on. I didn't know they were going to put a video in here. Y'all heard my belly? DJ, didn't Tupac owe Suge for helping him with he got out of jail? Maybe he felt obligated. Well, best of both worlds was OG post to been with Tupac, Carly. So and yeah, I heard about that. It should have been. It was supposed to have been Tupac instead of Jay-Z. I remember that. Yeah, that's so. I heard that before. Pretty Brown Eyes. I heard that before. I heard it was. It was supposed to be in Tupac, not Jay-Z.
How about this? Did Pac sleep with Faith Evans?
Yes.
Okay. Did Pac sleep with Jada Smith?
With who?
Jada Pinkett.
I wasn't with him during that era of his life, but I'll put it like this: I wouldn't doubt it. He said that Jada
He smashed
like a
pound cake,
like a female him.
He did pound cake. I'm gonna stop you right there. So he did. Next question. So all right, next question.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Next question. Did with all the lost files coming up, detectives feeling like they want to go on retirement because of this and all that. People say conspiracy theory. It's because of him talking. They said he wanted to be part of a certain elite group of people. Then he felt like the lifestyle that they was doing, they were trying to take his soul, and he wanted his soul back. So people felt like he had to go because he knew a little bit too much. Do you feel that Suge Knight set him up?
That's a really good question. It's a very interesting question. Also, I'm gonna put it to you like this.
Put it to me.
I listen really, really careful to this. I make no.
Hello.
Okay. Here you go. In 1996, the way I felt and what I thought about that whole thing with Suge Knight and the whole situation concerning Tupac and Suge Knight was completely different, because I couldn't understand how anyone would sit in a car with someone that they would put a hit on and trust that they wouldn't get shot when bullets was flying all through their car. I said it in Before I Wake, which plays on Fuse TV, and I said it in Got Your Back. You can find it at www.frank-alexander.com or amazon.com.
So is that a yes or a no?
Now, no, you got to hear this. The thing about that is that was 1996. In 2001, Rolling Stone magazine came out with the Rampart investigation through LAPD. And when that came out, I read that article. I have that article. The whole Rolling Stone magazine was about this crooked LAPD cop story of how Biggie got killed and how Pac got killed. And then it named one of the bodyguards who was with me, that was my relief bodyguard for Tupac, named Kevin Hackey. And I can say this because his name is out there like that. And we did a documentary, and he came out and said that he was an FBI informant, and he was there to infiltrate death row for drug racketeering. Now, all along, when we were working together, I never knew that. No one never knew that. But the Rolling Stone magazine announced it. So Kevin sued him over it because they exposed him. All right. Oh. So after I read that article, and then I started seeing all these LAPD cops that was from the magazine, they had them in there, pictures of them dressed in red suits. Then I started thinking differently. Right. Then I started seeing different things about how a different theory and a different conspiracy could have happened. Who am I going to trust to sit next to me, or trust to fire into my car if I would have set it up, would be another police officer, somebody that is well trained with using a weapon. I have 2 documentaries that go into that, and it's Tupac Assassination, Conspiracy, Revenge, and Reckoning. And I talk about those theories, and I talk about that. And my whole thought process completely changed from 1996 to 2001, after I read that article, then I started digging and digging and digging and looking for dirt. When I started kicking rocks and rocks started turning over, my partner and I, we started finding dirt. And then other things started coming up. So my whole theory on Tupac's murder did a 360.
So let me ask you last question.
Absolutely, to answer your question, absolutely. Somebody set him up. Now, the conclusion recently, within the last week or two, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the FBI released a 349-page document saying that in their findings that Suge Knight and Reggie Wright orchestrated and put a hit on both of them, Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac Shakur. That was the FBI's findings after they released their findings and decided to close the case on that murder investigation for them too. Now, that's what they wanted to do. The FBI did that. The only reason why they can't bring anyone to trial is because they had 17 informants, and all of them said no, they wouldn't testify. So if you don't have no one to testify to the facts, you don't have a case. The DA is not going to take it. So LAPD, being Biggie's jurisdiction of where he was murdered at, and then Las Vegas being Tupac's jurisdiction where he was murdered at, they're cold case files, and it's going to take somebody to have to solve them. Do I believe that the person that pulled the trigger on both of them are dead? I would say Tupac's killer for sure is dead. The other one, I can't say as far as Biggie goes. I believe Tupac's killer is dead, though. But I believe this. It was definitely set up.
No,
It was set up.
Based on your rock uncovering and flipping over, do you or did you see or were you leading to the fact that Suge had something to do with it? And Puffy.
Now you say and Puffy. I don't know. Here's the truth. Okay, John 8:32. The truth shall set you free. I don't know absolutely one thing surrounding Biggie's death. I cannot answer not one question surrounding Biggie's death for two reasons. One, I was no longer working with Death Row and the security company. I was long gone. By the time Biggie was killed, I was unemployed, writing my book or whatever I was doing. So I cannot answer anything concerning Biggie, Puffy, because I don't know nothing concerning Puffy, being P. Diddy now. I believe that someone out of Death Row's camp knows who set up Tupac's hit, is what I believe.
Based on your rock uncovering and where you were leading and things you were seeing, do you believe that Suge had something to do with that?
What I believed in 1996,
yes or no?
What I believe today, I would more or less point my finger to yes than no, and that being because we interviewed witnesses and people that testified on camera in my documentaries, that Suge Knight and Tupac had a vicious fight in New York at the MTV Awards. And Tupac told one of the bodyguards, after he was finished with a video shoot, they're walking him to the airplane, he told this bodyguard, who's a real good friend of mine to this day, he said, "I'm a dead man walking." And he said, "Pac, why would you say something like that?" He said, "Because I don't want to go to Vegas, and I got a bad feeling about it." And that was September 6th. It was a Friday because they had just finished shooting Toss It Up.
That's when the Movie Records, I think, was starting out. Who was the... He wanted to leave. Who was the big enticer for him to go to Vegas?
Well, here's the other thing. Everything, you guys are really good because everything that you're asking me, all these questions are in my book.
Well, thank you. We just started radio yesterday.
Tupac had some family matters that was going on in Atlanta, and he really didn't want to go to Vegas. He really wanted to go to Atlanta to deal with the problems that was going on with his first cousin, which was one of the outlaws. And this is in my movie, Tupac Assassination Reckoning is in that movie. And it's not even that I'm telling it. His family, Tupac's family, is telling that whole story. And he did not want to go to Vegas. He was not going to Vegas. And he had his mind changed and persuaded to go.
By who? By who?
By Suge.
Does that have anything to do with him wanting to leave Death Row and start Movie Records?
That there, when we were on Gridlock and all of that, they had already called an audit on Death Row. we were working on a set of Gridlock, and Yak Fuller's mother was one of Tupac's assistants, and she came down to the set specifically to talk to myself and Kevin Hackey to tell us that there were some things going on, there were some changes going on, and they was no longer going to be working with Death Row, that they were doing an audit on Death Row because Pac wasn't getting all his money, and there was some problems. And
Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? That was his bodyguard, Mr. Alexander, giving an interview to Hip Hop News and Uncensored. It went off. Hold on. Let's see if I could get some more Alexander's interview. Hold on, y'all.
Featuring Mix Exclusive.
They scared that nigga so bad. Okay, you know, Robin went to school with him. So she really believes that that fool was scared. They scared him into, you know what I'm saying? That's what everyone thinks. He was paid off, that's what everybody thinks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because he was up there, he was testifying for them. Exactly. Now, you don't take no ass whooping like that unless something's up. Unless the goose is cooked. Because Robin was like, that's Orlando. She got on the phone with him with her girlfriend. She went to school. And the next thing you know, she goes, you know what? That ain't normal Orlando. Now, something happened to him.
Okay. This is audio proof that my Frank Alexander was being threatened by Death Row, and this was an interview with R.J. Bond. This was back in 2014. But the thing that they're talking about now is that guy Orlando. So I guess Orlando Suge knew those people, right? That's what in that book they talk about. Suge knew that guy because he knew him when he was young. The guy was the one that just got arrested. He knew the family because they from that area. Okay, let me play this. It's kind of messed up, so you can't really hear it too well. I just hope you guys can hear it.
She thinks that either he got paid off or they said, hey, motherfucker, okay? You gotta remember, you gotta come back to LBC.
Hello all, this is J-Mix here, and I'd like to welcome all my YouTube subs and viewers to proof that Frank Alexander was threatened by Death Row Records. My exclusive interview with Mr. R.J. Bond. What's been going on with you, R.J.? It's been a while since we talked. What's up?
Well, you know, I catch up with the boards from time to time, and it's good to talk to you again, Jess. One of the things that I'm looking at when I see these boards is everybody keeps asking me about, you know, when's the next movie going to come out, and I keep putting it off. So I guess it's appropriate that I give everybody an update of what's going on. We got a book, and the book is actually being ghostwritten right now, and it's not ghostwritten because I don't know how to write a book. It's just I don't know how to format a book. So essentially what we've done is we've hired a guy, a professional writer, to come in, and he's taking what was, I want to say about a 750-page manuscript, and he's trying to tighten it down to like 300 pages or so. Essentially, when I started this thing, I kind of wanted to go back to all the source material that I had gotten for all the research for the movies and do like a 9/11 report, like a Warren Commission 9/11 report on the shooting, almost down to the minute. And at this stage in the ball game, we can account almost by the minute the last 12 hours of Tupac's life, almost down to the minute. So it's kind of fun to take a look at and do, but the book was getting kind of wordy. So we brought an author in to kind of tighten it down a little bit. So that's the book.
RJ, is the book the excerpts that you've been posting on Tupac Nation?
Actually, no. Well, it's what we've cut. Essentially, there was originally going to be two parts to the book. The first one is an explanation of what we believe to be the definitive story of exactly what happened and exactly why it happened. And the second half of the book was really going to be about the disinformation campaign, or what I call the obfuscation of the case. Because, the whole secret sauce to getting out of a murder case is to raise reasonable doubt. And if you're a good attorney like David Kenner, who had defended Snoop Dogg for murder and all that, that's the first thing a defense attorney knows. You raise enough doubt, especially reasonable doubt in a murder case, you're going to get your people off. So the first thing you do is you go to work to try to do everything you can to obfuscate it, to blur it up, so it creates that reasonable doubt. And that was the second part of the book. So what we ended up doing was, when we got with the publisher and we got with the writer on it, he was like, well, let's just focus on the first part. Let's just put our story out there. Let's not worry about disproving the other stories. Let's just put our story out there, and it should carry its own weight. And for the book that we put out, I agreed with that, and we kind of agreed to let that happen. But I still feel very strongly, because there's a lot of people running around right now that claim to be authorities on what's going on, and they claim to be solving the case and all that crap. And at the end of the day, all they're doing is running around spreading a lie. And I think when people's, when the scales fall off of people's eyes and they understand exactly what bullshit these guys are really putting out and why they're putting out the bullshit, then I think there's a lot of noise that goes down from the other side. It just makes me sad to see the same crap being brought up over and over and over again. And at the end of the day, there's really nothing behind it. It comes out of the blue. It comes out, really from nowhere, and it doesn't take much to knock it down. If you go to Tupac Nation and you go up there, I'm going to be posting excerpts from the book, parts that were cut out from the book. I'm going to be putting it up there, and if you ever want to read what's going on, read it. I try to reference everything I can with documents. I try to reference everything I can with references, and it's not just, hey, go look it up on the internet. Now, it's got to be a little bit more than that. So if you get a chance to read it, that's where I'm putting the information out there, and I'm going to keep putting the information out there up to and including the book.
Which report is it out of the three that you had? Because he told me, he said, the one that I think that came up is actually, I think, a Compton Police Department report. Mr. Kenner, I have never spoken to Compton Police Department. Never. I've never been inside of a Compton Police Department.
Do you assume to know who shot Tupac Shakur?
We think we do. Actually, we think we do. We think we know who the shooters are. We think we know, or were. We think we know who was behind it and why. We think we know who were the victims and who were the suspects. We think we know why certain people were killed afterwards, and they were killed in an order, and they were killed on purpose for who they were, and it's directly related to why they were killed. So yeah, I mean, we really think we've locked this one down. And like I said a second ago, and I guess I'm repeating myself, but when you look at any one of the killings that happened after Tupac got killed, and you look at them, you cannot just look at them at face value. You have to look at who was killed and the significance of who was killed. Why were those people killed? Because it was intentional. They would have you believe that some stupid gang war happened and people were just indiscriminately offing other people, and that's not the case. Each and every single person that was killed actually was killed for a reason, and it was not random by any stretch of the imagination.
What did I just say? Serious. I said it right out of his mouth, and then his girlfriend confirmed it. Really? Yeah. What did you say? Say what you did. She said that we did. She said that they said you told a lot of stuff against Suge and Country and Pop. Police. I did. And they said that they got the police report saying that you said that it's like I'm putting my ass in it. You said it. You said that Suge was kicking, that Country was Tupac was beating the guy up also. I never said any of that.
Wait a minute, RJ, are you denying that a gang war happened after the shooting of Tupac Shakur?
Well, we're going to get into that a little bit, post a little bit later in the book, because I do talk about that at great length in the book. Even the Compton police came out and said that any gang war that happened had no relation to Tupac. I mean, Compton police were the first ones, even before or while Tim Brennan was writing his affidavit, which is what's really kind of weird, that the left hand, for some reason, either didn't know what the right hand are doing or the right hand didn't care what the left hand was doing. But they came out right away and said, listen, this gang war that is happening had nothing to do with the Shakur case. So no, I mean, I'm not denying that people got killed. People definitely got killed. But when you talk about a gang war is a very big word for a series of half a dozen shootings. I don't know that that's a war. These people were targeted, they were killed, and all the people that should have been killed weren't killed, and a lot of people that were killed, nobody understood why. It appeared to be random, and that's why it gave this whole myth of being a war, because there wasn't really, at the time, a rhyme or reason to why these people that were being killed were being killed. So I'm not denying that there was a gang war. I mean, there were shootings that followed the Tupac case. But again, like a lot of other things, it tends to be kind of colored and kind of exaggerated over time.
All right, RJ, I got to ask you, what is your take on this Lloyd Lake guy teaming up with Reggie Wright, coming out and saying Suge Knight is a snitch, and even the fact that Reggie Wright is coming out and saying anything at all?
First off, let me tell you, Reggie Wright's a hypocrite. Okay, I can tell you that right now, because in 2007, when we put the first Tupac assassination documentary out, Reggie got on interviews with allhiphop.com. I didn't know what the financial situation was. I knew that they were all happy. I didn't get into it. I was just a security guy. I made a mistake hiring certain people like Frank and Michael Moore and Kevin Hackey, and they're all lying and they're all, blah, blah, blah. But he did everything he could to understate and underplay what his role was with Death Row. That was back in 2007. And like I said, you can go to Thug Life Army, you can go to allhiphop.com. And I don't really want you to. I want you to stay with my friends at Tupac Nation. But if you have to go research it, go to those sites and go and look at the interviews, because they're out there. I mean, that's the thing about interviews, that they kind of last forever. And look at how he downplays himself and tries to downplay his role. Yet now, here we are 7 years later, and suddenly he knows everything about what was going on with Death Row. He was running Death Row. He knew all about the record deals with the different artists and the points that they were being paid and whether or not Tupac Shakur was owed money. I mean, this flies directly in the face of everything that he said in the past. So what the hell are you going to believe about this clown? Because he goes back says one thing in 2007, turns around and says something completely the opposite in 2014. And I think it's for a reason. But then again, people like to talk. People like to hear themselves talk. And you get guys like Reggie, and you get guys that, really want to talk about, puff themselves up and make themselves bigger than what they are. I also think it's very fascinating and very interesting, the timing of all this Lloyd Lake and Reggie Wright nonsense, because, they could have come out at the time Greg Kading put his book out. They could have come out, especially if they were big fans, as they claim to be, of Greg Kading's work and how Reggie Wright helped Greg Kading. Well, then how come Reggie Wright didn't help Greg Kading promote his book? Probably could have gotten a few more viewers and a little more traction if he decided to come out of the closet then, like he's come out of the closet now. But of course now we're out to raise $150,000 before we tell anybody anything. But let me tell you what a great guy I am and how I single-handedly ran Death Row Records and how Suge Knight's a punk. Really? Now? I think that he's a hypocrite first. The second thing is he's not credible because of everything I just said. The guy comes out and he does one thing on one side of his mouth and says something completely different out of the other side of his mouth. He runs around saying things like the chain snatch happened at a certain time, and everybody else says the chain snatch happened months earlier. Some people say the chain snatch happened during the day. You know, nobody can get their story straight, and that's the problem with lies. It's really hard to keep them straight.
If you didn't get lost and not get subpoenaed today, I think you'll be fine. Reggie.
Reggie Wright recently has taken some shots at your friend Frank Alexander. It's been a year almost to the day of his passing. How do you feel about them taking shots at Frank?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts about that. The first thing is I miss my friend. It's been a year. I miss my friend. There's not a single day that goes by that I'm not driving around that I don't miss just picking up the phone and being able to call him and shoot the shit for no apparent reason. I've recently been listening to some taped interviews and some recordings and that, and listening to him talking on the phone, and it takes me back. So that's what I have to say about that. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But the other thing that I have to say is I find it really interesting that Reggie doesn't say shit about anything. Like I said, doesn't promote Greg Kading's book. Oh, he's a big fan. Oh, he even claims that he worked with Greg Kading on his book, and that he helped Greg Kading with his book. Well, okay. Well, I didn't see any acknowledgement from Greg Kading in the acknowledgement section. Thank you, Reggie Wright, for all your help. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm talking about is that here we go, Reggie saying, oh, I helped Greg Kading. Well, he wasn't around promoting Greg Kading's book when Greg Kading was putting his book out, and that was while Frank was still alive. Yet Frank's dead. Michael Moore dies about a month after that. These two key witnesses that knew more about what was going on with death row than apparently Reggie did, and they die, and all of a sudden now Reggie's going to talk the whole story. Reggie's telling everybody whatever they want to know. He's everywhere. He's all over the web. He's all over the magazine interviews. He's all over everywhere. And he's want to tell his story. And I think the timing of it is really suspect because, he had plenty of opportunities to do it before, and it would have actually probably been better for him to have done that. But I understand why he'd wait for Frank to die, because that's the only time that he's ever going to be able to say what he has to say and have somebody not refute it.
RJ, was Frank really afraid of the people that were at Death Row Records?
Well, Frank wasn't scared of him at the end, but Frank was terrified at the beginning of it. And one thing that people don't know is that when we were making Tupac Assassination 2, Frank let it be known to me that he had made some tapes of some telephone interviews, and he gave me a couple of clips that he had because he had been recording some phone calls. After Frank died, I got basically, and this is a guess, but about 10 hours of taped phone conversations between Frank and name it, Reggie, Kevin Hackey, Michael Moore, his friend Larry, who worked at Death Row, David Kenner, the LA County District Attorney. All of these conversations that he had, and it really was in one point in time where shortly after the shooting, they were trying to get Frank to testify for Suge on the Orlando Anderson beating, if you want to call it a beating, and what they were trying to get for Suge's parole violation. At the time, they were trying to subpoena Frank. And Frank had done 2 interviews. He had done an interview with Brett Becker the night of the shooting, and then he did a subsequent interview with Brett Becker a couple of weeks after that. And I've got all of these tapes, and the mistake that a lot of these clowns are making is not understanding or not knowing that Frank, who was terrified for his life when they said that Death Row wants you dead, and he was threatened directly not only by people at death row, but also threatened by Reggie himself, who after he threatened him, he goes, well, I'm not threatening you. Yeah, okay, sure. But yeah, he was threatened and he was scared to death. And here we go with Frank being in the frame of mind that he was and being nervous. And they weren't just threatening Frank, they were threatening his wife. And listen, motherfuckers, don't tell me that that's not the case, because I have tapes where those words were said. I've heard them. I heard the phone calls. Frank was not only being threatened, his family was being threatened. And I've got proof of it.
They recommend you don't get subpoenas, whatever that's worth. I don't know what it means, but that's what they tell me to check. Yeah, they try to. They're going to try to subpoena me for the next court date, which is at February 25th. But anyway, I just heard that they want me dead. That's what I just heard. I just got a phone call saying that they want me dead. Okay. So I wasn't going to say this, but I think I better. Okay, that's affirmative. That's true. True. I don't know. How can I say this where it doesn't? But that rumor is out there. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That rumor is out there. From the sources that I talk to, they're taking it personal. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They're taking it as, he fucked us. Trust me, I'm telling you just like what Norris is saying. And then by my little buddy that feeds me information, that is the word. Mm-hmm. They want to finish you off. Mm-hmm. And then after, talking to Larry and the other people that I know, that rumor got back to me too. Mm-hmm. That they used the word, we'll fix him and his wife. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, shit. Because they were telling me that if it didn't go, if whatever you said wasn't positive, they were going to fix you. If should don't get out, boy, you're going to be in deep trouble, Frank. You. What they're saying is, if you swing to their story, right, because then they're not going to hold you accountable. In other words, if you play ball with them, it'll look better if you play ball. But if you don't play ball, you see what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. Which comes to the next thing. Did they want you to change your story?
So, yeah, why would Frank want to say one thing? A lot of people have accused Frank of recanting. Well, let me tell you something. Frank changed his story. Kevin Hackey changed his story. Everybody's changed his story. Reggie changed his story. Everybody changed his story. But the reason Frank changed his story and the reason Kevin changed their story was because they were scared. Their lives were being threatened. And, that doesn't mean that later you're not going to go back to what your original story was. But in the land of Tupac, recanting seems to be something that everybody does.
RJ, it's been a year since Frank passed away. Are there any updates on what happened to Frank?
Yeah, well, a lot's become much clearer over the years. And, it's funny because in one aspect, a lot of what happened around the death of Tupac and people not wanting to talk about it and things like that, Frank's death mirrors that and parallels that a lot of different ways, because right after Frank died, for about the first, I would say probably 3 or 4 weeks up until his funeral in May, not a lot of people were talking. There was a lot of questions, but very few answers. And a lot of people were talking about it. And of course, by that time, the autopsy hadn't come back yet. There was questions. The detectives hadn't released a final report. There was a lot of facts that weren't known at the time. And of course, the most important thing, and something that Frank alluded to with the Tupac situation, is that nobody had time to actually take a deep breath, step back, and think about what happened calmly and quietly. Nobody had the opportunity to do that. I think once you get out of the heat, you get out of the sorrow, and for me, the grieving process is over, you begin to think a little bit more clearly about the events. You think more objectively. And yeah, there was a lot of shit that was going on at the time. Personally, and this is just my personal opinion, nobody's perfect, and Frank was certainly not a perfect individual. Frank was a flawed individual, like we all are. But Frank had a great heart, and he was a good friend. Now, that said, I think there are some questions that were never resolved in the murder itself, the death, the suicide, whatever you want to call it. Because unfortunately, when you have a situation where people are threatening you, and the threats are not just external, but they're internal, you have people I used to hear conversations all the time. Frank would be on the phone talking to me. We'd be going to the movies, and Frank's wife wouldn't stop calling. She was just like Fatal Attraction obsessed with Frank. And she would not, and this is when Frank hadn't done anything. Frank was just Frank. And we go to the movies. She would call him like 5 times while we were at the movies. What are you doing? Oh, I'm at the movies. Well, we're sitting there watching the movies. But she'd always invent these crazy ass reasons to call him about some drama that she was having. And most of it was bullshit. There was nothing to it. But she just either was bored at home, or she didn't have any friends. And so she would call him all the time. She would call him 4 or 5 times in a 2-hour interval. And would want to do that because she was so demanding of his attention. And it was like that. I mean, Frank talked about her all the time, like she was like a child, that she, really didn't know how to defend or take care of herself. And he felt bad for her like a child. And that's really how she behaved. And, towards the end, there was some severe, substantial arguments that were happening between the two of them. And, I heard the arguments, and I heard her threaten him. She threatened him 12 times. And, and yet when it looks like it's a suicide, and it looks like somebody killed themselves. I mean, I was just watching on 2020 not more than a week ago, where they had to reopen a case like it was 8 years old because everybody said it was a suicide. It was a suicide. It was a suicide. And the relatives were just insistent that it couldn't have been. And there was finally enough information that they were doing. They turned it over. It wasn't a suicide. But it's very easy for cops to clear a case and say it was a suicide. If it looks and smells like a suicide, then it's a suicide. But there's a lot of questions that I have because there was a lot of freaking motive at the time for it not to be a suicide. And you can make shit look like a suicide all day long, especially if you got people that live around the neighborhood that are cops. And you got people around the neighborhood that and why aren't you calling 911 from your own house? Why are you calling 911 from down the street at the local cop's house, and you're all hysterical about it, but you don't have the presence of mind just to call 911 from your house? We don't know how long it was between the time that she called from that. And Frank told me flat out personally that the reason that they had a fight and the reason that it was all, and I think, she even told me that because when he got home, his gun safe was open. Somebody had been tampering with his gun safe. Well, that's the first thing. When you're upset and you're mad about something, sometimes you lose focus and you lose objectivity. I'm sitting in there and somebody's opened my safe and is going through my personal things, and whether it's my wife or anybody else, and that's a point of contention between the two of us, we're going to sit and argue about something. And you know what? I may not think about checking to see whether or not my gun is chambered or whether or not there's a round in the chamber, when I would never keep a round in the chamber, that there's actually a round in the chamber, and I wouldn't know there's a round in the chamber because I'm blinded by my being pissed off at the situation. And sometimes you don't think clearly and stuff like that. I mean, it's the classic example of somebody that, punches a wall and they break their hand because they punch a wall. But do you really intend to want to break your own hand? No. But you got mad, you punched a wall, you did something out of frustration or anger, and you ended up hurting yourself. But to say that somebody's messing around with your gun safe first, and then you're pissed off about that, and and that so-and-so has the combination of my gun safe, where he kept a lot of documents. He didn't just keep his guns there, but he kept a lot of documents and stuff there too. But suddenly somebody got the combination of your gun safe, and suddenly there's an accidental shooting that's about a gun from a guy who's been in the Marines for freaking years, handles guns all the time, and knows the difference. The only thing I can tell you is that, the whole thing is suspicious as hell to me. And the more time that went by, and ironically, the less that his wife has surfaced or talked to anybody that has been anywhere close to him at all, suddenly that nice expensive piece of property that Frank had, the guard gate on it and all that expensive piece of property got locked up real fast. And then it was all about get off my property. Okay. It's sometime later. I mean, she's turned on his daughter. She's turned on his grandchildren. She's turned on all those people. You have to ask yourself, why? Why would you do that? Why would you alienate Frank's own grandchildren, especially if you claim to care about Frank at all? I definitely think that there's been a lot more that's been learned, and I think that there will be a good opportunity to do that. Now, I called the Marietta Police Department. There are a bunch of bozos there. I'll go on record of telling you that, because I called the Marietta Police Department a handful of times, and I've got proof that I did it because I called them from my cell phone, and I even stopped down in the Marietta Police Department several times to talk to somebody there, and they just showed me the door. They shooed me out. Now, I was his closest business partner, and I was one of his biggest business partners, and I was also his best friend of 17 years. And yet those cops didn't have one single question for me about anything. No motive, no question about, well, could it have been foul play? Could it have been, what was the arguments like? Were they arguing? Oh, by the way, how come his wife didn't give the cops his cell phone that he had recorded all their arguments on, where she was threatening him, and she lied to him and told him that she didn't have the cell phone, she didn't know where it was, and she deletes all the shit off of it and then gives him a wiped phone? I mean, come on. They took the convenient dodge that it looked like a suicide. He shot himself in the head, and there it is. Boom. There's no reason to look any further. We can clear it as that, so why bother to look any further? That's it. I don't feel like Frank spent a lot of time trying to get justice for his friend Tupac, but who's trying to get justice for Frank? And Frank led a very tortured life, my friend. He was threatened constantly by people at death row. He was haunted by that. Those people never really went away, so that threat never really went away either. And, always living, your life kind of one eye over your shoulder. That's no way to live. And, I worry that Frank has peace now, but what was the cost to get that peace? But because I don't think he had any peace in his life. I don't really think he did. That's all I got to say about that.
All right, that was it on that one. But I'm about to go to bed, y'all. You guys have a good night, and stay tuned. I will be bringing you more information on Tupac. Case as it unfolds. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a lot of stuff. So, all right. Good night, everybody. Have a good night.